welcome back to today's episode of the Tundra Cast. And today I'm joined by Ryan for the first time in a while.
Hey, well, how you doing, everybody? It's good to be back.
And I'm also joined by the cactus himself, Nick.
What's up?
All right. And today we're going to be talking about our mock drafts. And the draft is how far away is the draft?
We're like 2 weeks away.
I always
we're
forget
pretty
what
close.
day the draft is.
Isn't it next Saturday? I think it's the 9th,
no,
right?
it's July 7th. It is next
so it's
Tuesday.
even closer. It's the
Wait, what?
Thursday.
I don't
Thursday. It's the
remember.
next Thursday then. If it's the 7th, it's the Thursday. It's either the 7th.
Oh, I'm looking at June. I'm dumb. Yeah, July 7th. Yeah, so Thursday.
Yeah, it's Thursday. Yeah.
All right.
Anyways.
So it's coming up soon.
So with the draft being soon, we're going to do our mock drafts. And obviously, the three of us are probably going to have wildly different drafts depending on how we believe who will be picked where and how we're deciding who will be picked where depending on what the team's needs are or who we just think should be picked there and so on. And as we did last year and as I think every mock draft does, we'll just be talking about the first round. So we'll get started with Nick. Who do you have going number one overall?
Shane Wright. I mean, no introduction with Shane Wright. He's been the best player all year. I think the whole has been underperforming, underscoring, I think, are a little bit overblown. I mean, he's the best player all around, and he's trying to be the best player all around, and that's why he's scored 94 points rather than 124 points. Like, he needs to score 124 points in the OHL. Like I think the common argument, I don't want to compare him to Datsuk, but I think the common thing with Datsuk was that he could have scored. He was so skilled. He could have scored like 150 points every year in the NHL, but he was so good all around that didn't really get that opportunity. So, I don't know. Shane Wright's number one for me. And he has been all year, and that's not going to change.
It's not really. He's been number one 2 years ago. He was number one last year, and he's still number one. I think, we like to overthink the first overall pick, right? Like last year, there were questions. Is Laff gonna go number one overall? Like, yeah, he's gonna go number one, right?
Yeah, that conversation seems to come up like every year,
and for no reason. I mean, like Shane Wright is just like the most complete player in this draft class.
Yep.
And, in a class where there's a lot of really tantalizing prospects, a lot like we were talking about this earlier, there's like 40 to 45 guys to me that I think are worth a first round pick, in this year's class. It's a very deep class. There's a lot of great players, but a lot of them also have flaws, right? Like, it's a very balanced class, but there's not a lot of complete prospects. And Shane Wright's one of them, right? He's got the shot, and even this year, like, people are saying, he's not scoring goals. He's still been incredible. He's the main play driver on his line. He's a pretty good face-off man, right? He plays 200-foot game, right? He's good on off. He's a good playmaker. He's got good vision. He's got NHL strength, right? All the tools are there. So, no point in delving too much into this. Shane Wright's got to go number one.
Yeah, I
he
agree.
could probably. He's a future captain for sure. Like, second year, third year for Montreal, he could be captain. I'm not even joking about
Shane
that.
Shane Wright is definitely the number one overall pick, and if he's not number one overall, then whoever picks him is getting a huge steal. But
for sure,
hell of a player.
With this draft being so deep, it's a big bet that if you're a GM and you have a first round pick and you don't really know who to pick, just trade it away for a couple second round picks and you'll still get a really good player.
Really good player, yeah. But I mean, Shane Wright to me, like, I have a couple of player comps for like my top like 20, 25 players roughly. But for me, like, my player comp, yeah, you mentioned Datsuk, but I think Shane Wright can become a guy that's kind of like Patrice Bergeron, just plays that elite two-way game. And the thing about Shane Wright, and I think that's part of the reason why people were questioning whether or not he's the number one overall pick, is he's not very flashy, right? But Bergeron, like Bergeron's entire career, right? He's shown like he doesn't have to be flashy, but he can drive a line. He can be an elite center. He can win the Selke Trophy, right? And Shane Wright has all those kinds of tools, right? And he's got that natural leadership. So, I think for me, Patrice Bergeron would be kind of a player comparable, just in terms of how he could project at the next level.
Yeah,
that's a good comparable, to be fair.
Definitely. Yeah. So for the number 2 overall pick with the New Jersey Devils, who do you got going to, Nick?
I've got Slavkovsky. I think this one's pretty much written in stone. It's going to be Wright and Slavkovsky number 2. I mean, he's grown. I've watched him for a few years now, and like he's just a big body. You know, he's not overly physical. He's not like a fantastic skater either, but he's just such a big winger and he can score. He's played in the Olympics. He was amazing there. He played in the World. He was amazing there. He's just a big game player. And, you know, for such a big winger like him, it's kind of hard to pass up on when you're picking number 2. So he's probably one of the more, I don't want to say more ready players, but I think like a couple of years down the line, he's going to score pretty handily in the NHL. I think it'll be pretty easy for him. And especially you put him on a team like New Jersey who have Jack Hughes and have all these guys, it's going to be pretty easy for him to kind of slot in right away. So I think no doubt he's going to go number 2.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I've been on the Slavkovsky train for a little bit. Nick knows this. I've been hyping him up for a couple of months now as like my number 2 guy when, you know, people still had him in that like 6, 7, 8 range. I just think you mentioned, you know, he's not overly physical, but at least in the games I've watched, he's shown the ability and the willingness to hit. I think that's
Yes.
important. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. Like he's got all the makings of, you know, the next, you know, great power forward in the NHL. And his skating isn't great compared to, you know, like a lot of NHLers in the sense that, you know, from like just like a pound to pound basis, right? Like if you went on a race, Slavkovsky's not going to beat out, you know, a lot of NHLers, but I think for a guy his size, he moves really, really well. He's very mobile. And that's really why I had him at number 2 so early on, is because the way I see him, I think at his floor is lower in my mind in terms of like top line potential than some of the other guys in the top 5 that I have going. But I think his ceiling is just so incredibly high because he's a guy who I think legitimately can be in heart conversations in a couple of years. That's how good I think he can be given his size, his skill set, and you know, we've seen guys like Rick Nash is my player comparable for him if he turns out really well. Because Rick Nash is not a great skater by NHL standards, but for a guy that was his size, he was really good. The way he moved was pretty good for a big guy. And his physicality, you know, I think as he continues to get older, I think that part of his game will come out more. And you know, for me, it's just like Shane Wright and Slavkovsky are the 2 guys that I think can be NHLers in the in their first season. I think both of them can. I don't know if Slavkovsky will, um, because we know Shane Wright is definitely going to play for Montreal next season. I don't know if Slavkovsky will play for New Jersey, but I think he's capable. He's shown it. He's played in the Finnish Elite League, and he's played well, right? As an 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old. So I think he can do it, and that's why I have him at number 2. I think he's got incredible ceiling. And, you know, even if he doesn't pan out, I still think he can be a guy like Josh Anderson when he was in Columbus before he got those injury issues. Just a wrecking ball, speedy, you know, really strong, good at play driving, you know, a good 40, 50 point guy at his floor. And I still think that's really good. And the upside, I think, is the highest in the class. Like, yeah.
I also got Slavkovsky going number 2. I think my preseason uh, uh, my preseason draft, like uh, mock draft, I had him at number 2 also. So it hasn't really changed for me. Um, so yeah, that's who I got going number 2. I did think for a while about Simon Nemec, mainly because New Jersey does need defense, but as Nick said, you really can't pass up someone like Slavkovsky.
No.
Yeah,
Just
and then
just dynamic at his size. So dynamic at his size. And his Olympics.
I look.
Like, Olympics was such an eye opener.
Oh yeah, I look at his trajectory kind of similar to how Andrei Sveshnikov was. I think he'll have a pretty underrated first year, like a good first year. Then he's just going to explode like second or third year. Like I think out of the gate, he's going to be a better scorer than Shane Wright is. But Shane Wright is just so complete, you can't pass up on him number 1. That's not to say that Slavkovsky is going to be better than Wright, but I just think scoring wise, he's probably going to end up scoring more at an earlier pace than Wright is. But
yeah,
so that's kind of why I had him number 2 as well.
So for number 3, for the Arizona Coyotes, I think that they select Logan Cooley. I've been really impressed with Cooley for a while, and he just shows a lot of characteristics that I think could that any team will want. You know, he's I think he's 6'3", if I'm remembering correctly.
Cooley is
Cooley.
not 6'3".
He's definitely not 6'3". If I remember, he was actually like slightly undersized. I think he's like
He's one
5'11".
of the smaller guys. Yeah,
Yeah, one of the bigger
Oh
concerns with
yeah, no,
Cooley
no, no, no.
is
Sorry,
he's 5'10".
yeah, I mixed up. Sorry, I mixed up I mixed up another prospect that I almost had here. Sorry. Okay, so I do have uh him here. He's 5'10". I have him third because he, as I said before, he does bring a lot of things that I think any team will want uh, from him, and he would be just such a good fit for Arizona going further on. He is going to be going to the University of Minnesota. I mean, unless he decides not to, but he's got to do some things. But I think that this is kind of where I think he's so good that people are just gonna not really care about the fact that he might be a little bit undersized because he is good, very very good.
He's undersized.
um
I also have him at number 3. And he has grown on me throughout the year. Like when I saw him preseason, he was like number 2. I'm like, there's no way. But no, he's really dynamic. Like he's a magician with the puck at times.
he
He's a great
flashes
skater.
on the
He's
yeah.
just got flashes of just brilliance on the ice, and he's just like for a guy that's 5'10", he also can play the two-way game. Like he's one of the more complete players in this draft for sure, and that carries a long way. Obviously, when you're obviously 5'10". Yeah, I think I have him as number 3, which I had him in like mid-20s to start the year. So that's definitely showing you how much he's grown on me.
I think I had him at 10 to start the year.
Yeah, so he's going to be really, really good. I think more. I think he projects more as a winger than he does as a center, but he can play kind of either or. It doesn't really matter. He's just going to be dynamic and he's going to be super good, I think. So
Yeah, so the way I did not go with Logan Cooley at number 3. So this is where our
okay,
drafts actually start deviating. I went with Simone Nemec at number 3 for Arizona. And I know Arizona obviously has Soderstrom who plays on the right side, who's really good. But you know, the way I see it with Cooley is, I'll talk more about him when, it's actually like when I talk about the team that picks him. But I have some concerns with Cooley. But with Nemec, he's played in the men's league. He's played in the men's league all season in Slovakia, and he's been incredible. I don't remember the exact point per game that he had going, but he was putting up some crazy offensive numbers playing against men. And with Arizona, for me, it's just, obviously you want to take your franchise center at number 3, right? But for me, Cooley's not a clear cut. Him and Savoy are two guys that played center in the juniors and at this level, but I don't really see them as centers at the NHL level. And so I think if you're not going to be taking your franchise center, you know, you gotta take the best player available. And Simone Nemec for me is just clear cut the best defenseman in this class. Um, and it would be hard, I think, for Arizona to pass on him because I think he's a guy who won't be in the NHL this coming season, but I think could easily make the team 2 years from now and be an impact player. I think he could have an immediate impact the same way that guys like Ivan Provorov, who just stepped into the NHL pretty early on and was really good. Obviously, Provorov's kind of regressed since he's come into the league, but that's partly to do with Philly's system. A lot of good defensemen have played badly in Philly, but that's actually my player comp for Nemec. It's a Morgan Riley, Ivan Provorov type. I love his. I think he can quarterback a power play unit. I think he's offensively rounded in terms of the offensive end for defensemen in this class. There's a lot of really talented offensive defensemen, but I think Simone Nemec is just a step above, and that's saying something. He's got great four-way skater, and he's 6'1", 200 pounds, right? And he physically, he's not as physical as maybe you'd like, and defensively, I know there are definitely things that he needs to work on, but I think as he continues to grow and he continues to play against men, I think he'd be really good. And if you play him the way that the Leafs have done the last couple of seasons, put him with a really good defensive defenseman on the offside, right? The guy like a Labushkin or a Ron Hainsey, right? Like Morgan Riley, when he played with Ron Hainsey, had such a great season, and it didn't matter who you put him with, right? As long as it was a guy that was pretty responsible defensively. And I think Nemec is like that, where he's a guy that you can look back at in a couple of years and you can be like, this guy's top 15 in Norris voting. And I think that's what he can be. And I think with that kind of potential, it's just hard for me to pass on him. He's a great talent.
Yeah, I keep hating having to cut you off, Ryan, but I gotta quarterback this like time stuff. That way we're not handing Shay like an 8 hour video.
No, no, that's fair. That's
Yeah,
fair.
so I always don't want to interrupt you because I really like what you're talking about, but I'm like, oh god, I gotta keep shit moving.
Yeah, we
So
yeah,
number
for sure.
4, Seattle Kraken. I got Simon Nemec. Everything that Ryan said earlier. He's just very good. Obviously, he does have to work on a few things, but obviously, if Seattle had a big issue this year with defense a lot, and I know that Nemec does need to work on things a bit defensively, but I do think that if you pair him with someone who is responsible defensively, he can grow to be extremely good, and he could even grow his defensive game to be even better than it already is. It's just it's a great system that, well, hopefully it'll be a great system for Nemec because he does have very good upside. So I have him going number 4 to Seattle.
Right. I guess I'll go number 4. I have Joachim Kamel. He's been a little bit inconsistent down the stretch. However, he was amazing to start the season. He's a fantastic scorer. I had him. I think at one point I thought he was like the most NHL ready prospect, which I still somewhat believe. I think he's been overtaken since then. He's just so good with the puck. He's so good offensively. He just fills the puck with nets. He's got some great vision in the offensive zone. I don't think he's really a slouch either defensively, although I don't think you're getting him more to be a defensive player. You're getting him to score goals, and you're getting him to
Did
make
you just
plays.
say he fills? You said he fills the puck with nets. By the way, I just
Did I?
yeah, I just want to point that out. You said he
Fills the net with pucks.
he
Sorry
fills the
about that.
puck with nets. Okay.
Fills the
Honestly,
yeah.
a pure goal scorer. He's
He
great.
is.
Kamel's
I
great.
think he's going to be. Yeah, I think he's going to be dynamite, and I think he's a guy that can jump in the league right away. Honestly, I think he's that good already. Yeah, I have him number 4 overall, and I don't want to. I don't think he'll go any higher. Like I'd probably take Cooley just because of his ceiling ahead of Kamel, but I wouldn't take him any lower than 4. I think 4 is the perfect spot for him, and like I said, I think he'll be in the league next year. Like he's that good, if not the AHL at least. So then he'll be a good scorer there. I think.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
What about you, Ryan? Who do you got?
I mean, I have to contradict Nick here because Kamel is not going in the first 4 picks for me because obviously Nemec went third, third for me. So at 4th, I have Seattle taking Logan Cooley, and I just think Beniers. They took Beniers first overall last year. U.S. connection. They've played together. I think if Cooley is available at 4 for Seattle, they have to take him, right? Like it was really a tough decision for me to pick between Cooley and Nemec at 3, but which for me at least, if Cooley is the guy that's available at 4, there's no chance that Seattle's gonna let him get past them because he either develops into their 2C, which is what I project him to be like a very very high end 2C, or he becomes a first line winger with Beniers, right? And either way, like that's a great combo. And if you can have the opportunity to draft your 2 franchise centers in your first 2 years of existence, I think that's great. So yeah, I feel like if for me at least, since Cooley's available, Seattle's got to pick him.
Wait, hasn't Seattle picked number 4 in back-to-back years now?
No, they picked 2 last year.
Oh, they picked.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Beniers was second overall. Yeah,
Oh,
Beniers
yeah.
was second overall. That they
Okay,
picked.
so
Yeah,
number
my bad.
5, the Philadelphia Flyers. I have David Urek.
Oh, you're sick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jesus,
Yeah.
I've been
Urek.
I butcher names all the time on accident. David Urek. I just really like his game. I know that you might not see him there, but I think that Philadelphia showed this year that they're pretty weak defensively, and I think Urek would be a very good pick for them. even if he isn't NHL ready year one, which I don't think he'll be, he's got good size. He's 6'3". I think he's 190. He's 190 pounds. I think he's a right-handed shot. Uh, you know, he's a very very good skater, and he's got a good shot. And it's definitely a guy who could be a top two D man for your team, and I think he could be very good for them. So I think that this is like a must pick player for them, especially when they do have their defensive needs.
I mean, I like Jurasek. I think he's a good player. I'm not as high on him. I think he's in this range again, one of the more safe picks. I don't think, I think you're a little bit higher on his upside than I am. I just don't think his skating is like when you like this is why I'm so high on Nemec is when you see Nemec move going forward with the puck in transition, he's so smooth and elegant. And Jurasek, his skating is good, but it just doesn't seem to like he doesn't seem to hit that next gear when he has that puck the same way that guys like Kale McCarr, they just get going forward, right? Jurasek is more of a like an easy pace guy, but I think his defensive upside is he's very well rounded. So I don't have him going at number 5 for Philadelphia. I have them taking Kamel because for all the reasons that Nick
Oh
basically said.
Jesus!
Um,
It's gonna
I think
surprise
I
everybody
think
how low I have Kamel.
I could because the way I look at it with Kamel is just with Philadelphia at this pick, they're actually just a barn burning team. Like they're just terrible. I don't know what to say,
Hey,
but
they have
when you're a
Tortorella.
team like when you're a team like them, you just gotta take the best player. You just gotta take the best player at the spot. And for me,
Hmm.
Kamel's just the best player. Like Nick said, right? Like I think in terms of NHL readiness, it's from 1 to 4, it's Wright, Slavkovsky, um, Kamel, and then Cooley. Those are like my 4 guys I think are the most actually Nemec and then Cooley. So those are why I have those guys in the top 5, right? I think those guys are the most NHL ready. Um, but like um, with Kamel, I think he's got a pretty good floor. He's a 200-foot player. He has the capability of being a 200-foot player, but he can score goals in bunches. So and the Flyers apparently need that. Well, the Flyers need everything.
Yeah,
But
I think
they
they I
you
think
can
they needed defense most, and that's why I said that's why I said Urek because
that's very
because as I
Ursek's
said
good.
before, I mainly went off of what teams needed, and that's why some players won't make sense because I mainly went off of what teams needed and such. Nick, who do you got number 5?
Not Savoy. Um,
Oh my,
yeah, I I love his skill set, and I
Ryan,
think he can
stop
just
making
he's
those
just
sounds.
relentless. Yeah, no, he's just so relentless. Just like he just wants the puck on his stick all the time, and he'll do it anyway. He can be a pesky player. He'll hit you. He'll slash you. He'll do anything to get the puck off your stick. And he just has such great skill. It's hard to knock the puck off him as well. His puck control's fantastic. He drives the net. He's very confident in the way he plays. He's still very raw. Don't get me wrong, but he's just. I have a hard time not picking him top 5. To be honest with you, I think he's just such an underrated player in like the defensive aspect that it's just tough for me to pass up on him. But I do think he'll be more of a winger than a centerman. Um, he's just been such a good player for Winnipeg this year, and every time I've watched him, I've just been like, this kid's pretty good. So yeah, I have him 5, which is probably higher than what a lot of people are going to have him. I feel like he's kind of all over the place, but
Yeah,
I think he's
I
I think he's fifth best player.
I mean
I
you'll
don't
hear him from
hate
me in a
that.
bit.
I don't actually hate that because on my big board, which is like in terms of overall talent, I actually
Mhm.
have Savoy number 6. So I do
Mhm.
have him in that range. But on my actual mock, I have him lower just because of needs and team fits. So
Yeah.
I do think you're very brave to take him this high. I
Mhm.
like it. I'm not gonna say I don't like it. I like it. But him over Nemec is a bit tough for me because you know how much I love Simone Nemec.
Yeah, yeah, that's understandable.
I'm so confused as to the noises you were making, Ryan. But let's move swiftly onwards, because I don't want to talk about
It
it.
was it was internal it was internal
Let's
conflict for
move.
me. I
At
was I
number
was
at
Let's
going
move
number
for
on.
Sean.
six, I don't want to know. I don't want to know why you make those sounds. At number 6, the Columbus Blue Jackets, who have the pick from the Chicago Blackhawks because of the Seth Jones trade.
Seth Jones.
Lol. I have them picking Cutter Gauthier. Please tell me I pronounced that right now. I didn't butcher another name.
No, you pronounced it right.
Usually I'm so good at pronouncing names, but whenever we're recording, I'm just like, yeah, time to butcher everything, even though I'm usually very good at pronouncing names. But yeah, I think Cutter Gauthier can be extremely good. Uh, he's in Boston College right now, and he's a center. And for me, it's just a thing where, in my opinion, uh, he's 6'3", 201 pounds. He's left shot. He's a center. He can also play the wing. Um, I really like him. Um, so I have him going here because for me, the one thing, well, they miss a couple things. They've been missing a couple things, but the thing that Columbus needs very badly is that true center. They don't really have one yet. They like, Texier is kind of good, but they need that true 1C that every team needs. And I think that Cutter Gauthier could develop into that, and even if he doesn't, he could be a very good first line left wing, or even a 2C. But either way, they're still getting a very good 1 or 2C, which in my opinion they just don't have yet. So
Me and Nick, I think this is one of the few players that me and Nick have consensus on.
Maybe.
Because I have Cutter Gauthier in the 20s on my big.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I.
And that's actually very contrary to most, I think, the general consensus for scouts. Like, I've seen him as high as like number 5, number 6. I get, he's 6'3", he's strong, he's explosive. He's scored like 35, 36 goals this season in the US was it USHL that he played in this year?
It's the US.
Yeah, because he played in the USHL this year. The NTDP program.
Yeah.
He's going to Boston College next year, but I don't buy the ceiling. We've heard toss. He can be a first line center. He can be a second line center. To me, he's a middle 6 forward. I think that's what he projects to be. I don't see him as a potential first line, first flight elite center. That's just me personally, from what I've seen. I think he has consistency issues. We haven't seen his size translate and play against men, because I think that's part of why he's been so dominant in his USHL career so far. He's just bigger than everyone else, than a lot of the players. We'll see how he does in college this season, but I'm not wholly convinced. But he's a first round talent for sure. I like him.
He did pretty
but
good.
I think
Just to let you know, he did pretty good during the World Juniors, the U18 World Juniors this year.
yeah, but again, right? It's against U18s, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So to kind of clarify, the main reason why I have him going this high up is because, in my opinion, I think he has the work ethic to, even though he may not have as high of a ceiling as other players, I think his work ethic can push him forward more than natural skill, natural talent. I think he'll just work at it until he gets there.
I mean, yeah, he's a good player. Like, I'm not gonna dispute that. But Nick, who do you have going here at number 6?
Number 6, I have the first defenseman of my board, and that is David Jiricek. I love his game, man. Yeah.
Ryan, please stop making these noises.
Really. Nick, you're killing me here, man. You're killing me here.
I have Jiricek. Still no Nemec. But
he's gonna have a stroke once Nemec's still not picked. Every time Nemec's not picked.
I should have just let them off. I should have just let them off just to mess with you.
No,
I just think Jiricek's such a safe bet in the first round. I think when you look at all the defensemen, there's always kind of a little bit of question marks around all of them that I've seen. But I think with Jiricek, maybe the skating's a question mark, but I think offensively, defensively, he's got the heart. I mean, he's just such a good defenseman. He's so stable. I mean, he's got size as well. I have a hard time believing that he's not the best defenseman in this draft, just based on those facts. He's a very safe pick, I think, in this range, and I think he's the most ready to step in right away in the NHL. So,
I mean, I can't hate that because my player comp for him is Colton Parayko. right? Just a solid two-way
Right.
game, can play on your
That
power
makes
play
sense.
too. He's got a bomb too.
Yep.
Yurcik has a bomb as well,
Did
He's got a
similar
bomb.
to
You're right.
Pareko,
Yep.
and he's got that steady, underappreciated two-way game. So like
Yep.
I like him, right? I just think Nemec's upside is just way
did you
higher. For me
For sure.
personally.
did you say your number
Um,
6 pick yet, Ryan?
no, I haven't.
Okay.
And this is where I'm gonna get a lot of hate, all right? But this is one of my guys,
He
and I'm
doesn't
gonna
have.
stick by him. All right. Noah Osland is a top 10 player in this class. I
Hell
don't care
yeah.
what anybody tells me. Noah Osland is amazing. He's an incredible
He's not
player.
in my top. I'll say this. He's not in my top 10, but man, he's amazing. I love that. I love that fish.
Everyone hates on him. I see
I don't know
scouts
why.
coming in the second round, the third round. You guys are haters. This guy is an incredible
Real.
player, and to be fair, I'm in love with a lot of the players that played for Dearden's U20 team this season. I have a bunch of them here in the top
Oh, yeah.
15. But you know, he's got such an underappreciated, underrated game. And I know Rossi, we're on a time limit, but this is one guy that I need to talk a little about because people need to know how good he is.
Just say his name again, because every time you say his name, it sounds like you're really angry.
Noah Osland. Okay. So Logan Cooley, Matthew Savoy are both guys I have over him on my big board in terms of overall talent, right? But this guy is so solid and he's so stable. His ability to make passes in tight spaces is by far the best in this class. Cooley and guys like Cooley, Savoy, they may be more creative with the puck. They might be able to make these eye-popping passes that make you jump out of your seat, but in terms of playing with him, he's the most steady centerman in this class, I think, outside of Shane Wright in terms of his two-way game. He's so responsible defensively as a center. He always gets back to cover the slot. He works hard. He's even despite the fact that he's 6 foot, he's not the biggest guy, but I think as he grows into his height, because he is 6 feet, as he grows into his height, he can be really good. He's a relentless forechecker, and his playmaking and vision, right? He's not flashy. He's not a flashy player, but he makes all the right plays. And the biggest reason I think people don't have him in the first round sometimes is he doesn't have that goal scoring touch, which is what you want from a center, right? Especially if you're taking him this high. But for me, I look at him and I see Nicholas Backstrom written all over him. I'm gonna be honest. Like that's my player comp from. I see Nicholas Backstrom written all over him. The way that they can, if you put him with a goal scoring winger like an Ovechkin, someone who can put the puck in the net, I think he's going to be outstanding. And good thing Columbus has a guy named Patrick Laine who can't do a lot of things, but if there is one thing he can do is put the puck in the back of the net.
Who's writing Nicholas Backstrom on this poor kid?
What do you say?
Okay, everybody. Okay, I said who's writing Nicholas Backstrom on this poor kid? My joke is not. My joke is not. Why are you writing things on kids? What is wrong with you?
No, okay, all right. But I'm really high on him, and
why did it take you guys that long to get my joke?
I don't know.
He can be a top 6 center, and I think he fits in really well with Kent Johnson and Laine. I think that as a future line can be really good because Kent Johnson is kind of like a Savoy, where he's really creative with the puck as a puck driver. You have a Laine who's a natural finisher, and Osland is just that guy who just does everything in between. He gets the puck, he'll get the puck to Ken Johnson, he'll cover for Laine defensively, and he's a great passer too. So I've made my case. Noah Osland, top 10 pick in this year's class. Book it.
Didn't ask. All right, so number 7, Ottawa Senators. I have Joakim Kamel. Man, this guy's just great at like everything he does. Like it's like playing an NHL like video game. You give it to him, he scores. Like he's got that it factor shot. And he could go pretty. I think he'll do very well with Kachuk and Stützle on a line. And I would really like to see big. Like I think that line will be amazing with Kachuk, Kamel and Stützle. So I think we'll see what happens. But I have Kamel here.
I mean, it's funny
that's a
that
steal
you have him.
for Ottawa.
Yeah, like that's a steal, but it's funny you have him going at 7 to Ottawa because my player comp for him at his peak is a guy like Mark Stone. I can put the puck in the net, but
Okay,
it's
let's just
just
hope
so
what
good
happened to Mark
to
Stone in Ottawa doesn't
so.
happen.
Oh well, yeah, of course. But yeah, I think Kamel it would a steal if he falls to 7 to Ottawa and they don't take him. As a Leafs fan, I'll be laughing at them all day.
Okay. Nick, who do you have 7?
Another defenseman at 7, and that is Simon Nemeth. Um,
You should have
Thank
just
God.
changed it so it
Thank
wasn't
God.
him and it was just some
Thank
I
God.
random.
know. I really wanted to say Owen Pickering there, but I just couldn't do it.
Could you
Yeah,
imagine?
Simon Nemeth. I know. I still have some question marks at his decision making in the defensive end. I won't lie. There's times where I've watched him and he's just getting kind of like swallowed up by a forechecker, which raises a little bit of question marks for me. But I agree with Jack when he talks about upside, just how good he was in a men's league this year, despite it being. I mean, it's a Slovakia league. It's a
Yeah,
men's
it's
league
not.
at the end of the day. Like it's not the
Yeah.
best league in the world, but it's a men's league at the end of the day. I mean, if you play him in the Czech, do you think like he'll probably have like a higher upside on a lot of draft boards? I think Slovakian league, it's not a slouch of a league by any means, and I think he's been a little lower on some boards that I've seen because of that. But he's got some huge upside. I totally agree with you on that one. And he's a really good skater, really good transition game as well. He has grown on me since the start of the year. At first, I was didn't really understand the hype around him, to be honest, but he has grown on me. And I have him 7th here, right behind Jiricek. So, and Nemeth on Ottawa could be very nasty with the likes of Shabbat and everyone else.
I will.
That's dangerous.
I will say this before
Yeah.
we get to Ryan's number 7 pick. Speaking about defensive decision making, I've been a lot more easy on defenders when they make decisions ever since watching Russia's defense during the World Juniors. Because that was it was literally
That
just
was
watching
awful.
like Askarov and the other Russian goalie. It was just like watching just poor like it was like someone help them,
The horror film.
please. It was like
It was a horror film.
it was like I get it. Askarov keeps like throwing his stick around, but he's honestly got to do that because his stick is the only thing playing defense.
He was on an island. They
Yeah.
actually left him out to dry.
And it wasn't even better for the other goalie. It's like both of these poor Russian goalies are just getting fucked over.
Skarov's trade value dropped like 50% after that tournament.
Yeah,
It wasn't even all his fault. Most of it wasn't even his fault.
Yeah, it wasn't even his fault. And like I was just like, it's fine. But then everybody was just like, bro, and I was just like, what are you talking about? Russia's defense could literally just grab the puck and throw it into the net each time to score on themselves, and they would still be better defense than what they're doing right now.
Yeah, no. So for my number 7 pick, I've gone with David Urasek. And the funny thing was, I think last November he wasn't in my first round. Like I didn't buy him, I just didn't really like the way he played. It just seemed too quiet
He
for
just
me.
wasn't Simon
But
Nemeth.
the more I watched him play, I was like, you know what? After watching, guys like Jake Gardner and what do you call it? Justin Hall play for my team, Travis Dermott in the playoffs 2 years ago. I'm like, you know what? Quiet isn't always bad. And I think Urasek plays just such a steady game. I do think that I do have questions about his, decision making too in terms of his transition play. I don't think he's as seamless. I don't think he's as smooth as Nemec. I don't think he's as comfortable as Nemec is bringing the puck out of his own zone as a rush defenseman. But like I mentioned, my player comp for him is Colton Parayko, and I think that's a really, really good player. If he can become that to take at number 7 for Ottawa, and I think Ottawa would really benefit from having a player like him on that right side with him and Jake Sanderson. I think that would be an elite right side for Ottawa. The same way that Nemec, Sanderson, and Shabbat as your top 3 defensemen could be dangerous. I think it could be just as dangerous with Urasek because he's just so reliable, and I think he'd be a great pick for Ottawa. I wouldn't like it as a Leafs fan. I would not want to play this guy if he reaches his potential. But yeah, Jurasek's a great player. Run on me a lot.
All right. Number 8, the Detroit Red Wings. I have Matthew Savoy. I think everything that Nick really said, but for me, I just have a lot of questions about him. I think a lot of the things, Nick talked about like his want to have his want and stuff to have the puck, and I think that sometimes that can really go against you if you're trying to play offense too aggressively. As Ryan just said earlier, sometimes having a quiet player is good. It's better to be smart and that than to try to have the puck all the time and commit turnovers and eventually cost your team. Not saying he'll do that or something. I just have those questions about that. So that's why I have him dropping to eighth, and I think he'll go to Detroit, and I do think Detroit will probably be the best place for him to grow.
That's fair. Savoy's a really good player. I really like him too. Like I mentioned, number 6 on my big board, but I
Mhm.
don't have him going here at 8. But I'll let Nick go with his guy first.
So this is a player that I remember watching the first time I watched them, and I love them straight away. Like if I'm having a bad day or something, I'll just turn this guy on and just or not turn him on, but I'll turn on game footage of this guy, and it just makes me happy. And I think it's perfect that he's going to Detroit here. It's Jonathan Lekkerimaki from
Oh,
Djurgården.
yeah.
He's just so good. He does everything so good. He's so smooth. He's so skilled. He's got a great shot already. Like he's just so good. I can't say much else about him. Like I said, he just makes me happy on a dark, dark day. That's just look at Aramaki, and I think Detroit's a pretty good place for him to go, considering they have a lot of Swedes on that team. So I guess it would kind of fit the trend there.
Yeah,
But
that's fair.
yeah, but
Um,
he's just so good. I don't know what to say.
so
He's just so good.
who do you got, Ryan? Number eight.
I've gone with a player that the more I've watched them throughout this draft process, the more I've liked them. And historically, I've been a lot lower on USHL players for some reason. I think I just don't buy them sometimes because I think the USHL as a league in general is not as strong. Although that is something that the quality over the last couple of years has increased like crazy. But I've gone with Frank Nazar here at 8 for
Oh,
Detroit.
yes.
Um, he's
My dog
he
just
he's
busted my door open. I'm terrified. What the hell?
I think both him and Osland are a little bit underappreciated. Nazar not as much as Osland because he is a consensus lottery pick slash first round pick, but his my player comp for him is Thomas Hurdle. He's very creative with the puck. He can play a pretty good two-way game, and he's been really good in the USHL this year. But his production has been very similar to Oslin's, right? Oslin's production at the U20s for the Jurgens is about the same. 42 and 32 for Osland, and 35 and 24 for Nazar, right? So it's around the same, and I think he's gonna be a really productive player. And I don't think Nazar will necessarily be a 1C, but I think he will be a very high quality 2C. I'm talking about a Nazem Kadri, a Thomas Hurdle, like I mentioned. He can be a number 1C on probably like the bottom 10 teams in the league, but I think he would be a quality top notch 2C on any team. In the NHL at his peak. So, he's one of the players that, I originally had outside the top 20, but the more I've watched him, he's just been great at every single level he's ever been at, and his hockey IQ, his edge work, he's got great edge work as a skater. Um, I just think him and Austin are two really underappreciated playmakers, and they both play center. So I think he'd be a really good fit in Detroit. I think they'd value his playmaking there. There've been a lot of great playmakers that have come across that team.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
For number nine, the Buffalo Sabres. I have Frank Nazar. I
Ah, yes.
love Frank Nazar. Uh, I I love Frank Nazar. He's become easily one of my favorite, if not my favorite player in this entire draft. Definitely a person that if I could, I would like to see him go to Nashville, but I don't believe he would drop all the way to 17. Um, he's extremely good, and he's got exactly what you want in a player. He's got the drive and the work ethic and just persistence to be better and just better himself. And like he doesn't need to be a 1C on Buffalo. He could be a 2C. He could be a a one wing or a two wing, and it's perfect because they have other players that can fit there. And I think
Dylan
he's got his
Cousins.
yeah he's got his best opportunity to grow in Buffalo, I believe. And I don't know how those Sabres could mess him up, but if you mess him up, I'll find you, Sabres, all of you. Uh, I just love Frank Nazar so much, and I think that even him at number 9 is a steal. But yeah, Frank Nazar is my number 9 pick going to the Sabres.
Cool. I also have him at number 9. And I agree. He's one of my favorite players in this draft, without a doubt. And I agree with Siakam when he said, hey, like he's a really underappreciated forward, especially like his two-way game is just up there with some of the best in this draft. One thing as well with him is his shot. He's just got such an amazing shot. It's almost NHL ready, I would say. I just want to say this as well. Frank Nazar, please come play for London. Please. I know you're going to University of Michigan, and it's a great school. If I had to pick an NCAA team, it'd be Michigan. But please come play for London. I want to watch you play. I will buy your jersey if you come to London. Like, man, I want you to come play for this team. Man.
Nick, if you want,
Okay.
you can come down here to where I live, and I'll take you. And I think because the Badgers will play the University of Michigan.
True.
I'll take you to a game.
Michigan's going to be so good next year. But anyways,
I'll take you.
Yeah, I got
just
Nazar at
wanna
number
say-
9.
I just want to say that's also part of why I had him going to Detroit. Keep him relatively local, right? Detroit is pretty keep it in the Michigan area, relatively close.
True.
But yeah, Nazar is great. So I actually thought that I was gonna be the only one who had him in the top 10, but it's good to see you two know what you're doing as well.
Yeah,
I did have him at 7 at one point.
I think I had him a lot higher than 8, but I just was like, the needs and stuff. And I'm not too sure that GMs are ready to realize that size doesn't really matter as much anymore in the NHL. It's mostly about speed.
I think Nazar's not even that undersized. I don't.
No,
He
he's
is
only 5'10". He's only 5'10",
but
but still though,
there's a lot of players in this class that are in that 5'10", 5'11" range. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and
Especially in the top end.
I think eventually the NHL will reach to a point where it's so speed focused that we will start seeing 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", and so on players just start coming into the league in droves, because we've seen that while still very rare, we have seen it working, such as like Rocco Grimaldi, Theo Fleury, and just Martin St. Louis. Like, it can work. You just need the player with the right work ethic. So, sometimes just don't focus on size and focus on the player's work ethic, because you could have elite level talent, but if you don't have the work ethic, it's not going to pan out.
It's actually funny that you mentioned this because I generally agree with you, but the reason that this player has fallen to number 9 for me to Buffalo is partly because I do worry about his size at the NHL level, and that is Matthew Savoy. Savoy is really good. Like I said, he's my number 6 on my big board, but part of the reason he's dropped this far down for me is because I don't project him as a center at the NHL level as a center. I just don't think he can do it. I don't think he's big enough. I don't think he's physical enough, given his size at the NHL level. And obviously, like, I'm gonna be the first one to say, size is an overblown thing. We've seen guys like Brandon Hagel be really good in the NHL. Travis Konechny, Cole Caulfield's having early success as well, but I mean, he's what, 5'9", 5'10"? Like, even for a small guy, he's kind of small. But and the thing is, like, I like him because he was my number 2 prospect at the start of the season. Like, that's how much I love his skill set. I compare him to Mitch Marner. I think the way that both of those players dominate on the puck. Matthew Savoy is best when he has the puck on his stick, when he's the play driver on your line, when he can look at the open ice with the puck and make plays for his teammates, right? But I think his value as a player is limited to a top 6 role, because if you put him on the 3rd line or the 4th line, he's not going to be a checking line kind of guy, right? On a Stanley Cup team, we've seen the past couple of years, usually the 3rd line is like a checking matchup line, right? Savoy is never going to be that. I don't think he has that skill set. So it's top 6 or bust for him, right? But I think his production is also going to be reliant on you're going to have to find a goal scorer and put him on the line with Savoy. Otherwise, I don't know if his talent is going to be able to translate. And we've seen how Mitch Marner has been able to flourish with Toronto, but part of that is because the two centers that he's played with his career are John Tavares and Austin Matthews. Like, no discount to Mitch. He's a great player, right? But would he be as good
Let's
if he
just
didn't have
let's just
those two
hope
guys on
Savoy
the line?
doesn't develop the same kind of trait that Marner has.
In terms of flipping the aha, so funny,
No,
Rossi.
I,
You're
I
such a
no,
funny
I
guy.
meant the money hungriness, But
Oh, that's not really Marner. That was
mm,
more his dad and his agent.
well,
But
still though,
but
let's
yeah,
just hope he doesn't have
I
an
think
agent like that because that
I
could be
think
very
there are
detrimental to the
concerns
team.
with Savoy though, because he's not a center, right? So he would be my number three winger behind Kamel and Slavkovsky, and I don't, I think that's pretty good. But because he's not a center, the value is not quite there compared to some of the players I've taken ahead of him, and I think it's going to take him a lot more time because, as Nick mentioned, he is pretty raw. He's got all the skills, but he needs some time and he needs the right situation. And so when I think of his future in Buffalo, it's Cousins as a two-way center, Jack Quinn as that sniper goal scorer, and then Savoy as the play driving playmaker.
This video is
So
gonna
like
be
that's
like
why I had it.
this video is gonna
Yeah.
be like 8 hours long. Um, Number
All right, we'll
10,
speed it up.
the Anaheim Ducks. I have Pavel Mintyukov,
Uh,
and
Nick loves you right now. Nick loves you right now.
hey man,
Nick loves you right now.
I love this prospect. I think he'll work perfect with the Ducks. Uh, you know, I just really like the way he moves and everything. A lot of people have him going like later in the round. I don't see that. I see him going here. I really like him. He's 6'1", 192, left-handed shot. Uh, Last year with the Saginaw Spirit, he had 62 points in 67 games played, and I just really like him, and I think he could definitely be paired with one of the Ducks D-men and just go. Definitely, I think it's just a match made in heaven, and that's why I have him going number 10.
Yeah, that's a solid pick. That's a solid pick in my eyes. I know you probably don't agree with me, Siakam, but that's a solid pick.
Well, it's better that he doesn't agree with you than when he agrees with you and makes those weird noises.
True. Yeah, that is true.
Stop
Number
making
10, I have a
noises.
player that's number 10, I have a player that's grown on me quite a bit, but he's quickly becoming one of my favorite players, I think, in this draft, and that is Isaac Howard from the U.S. Development Program. He's just an all-out goal scorer.
Jeez.
He just fills the pucks, fills the net with pucks. I almost did it again. Jesus. Yeah, and he's defensive game. What's that?
You have him so much higher than I do.
Yeah, that's okay. His defensive game is no slouch either. His positioning is so good. He can make plays. He shoots the puck really well. He's in the right areas. He's in open areas all the time. He can play on the power play. He can actually play on a PK as well. I think he's a underrated guy. I think he's been growing in this draft for quite a while. I think he'll be a pretty good fit in Anaheim when you look at the skilled guys like Troy Terry and obviously Trevor Zegras and all that. I think he'll be a good fit there, I think. So I think 10's a good spot for him, but I think he's a top 10 pick in this draft. I think he is.
I'm going to have to start speeding everybody up. Sorry.
Yep.
So, Brian, who do you have for number 10 and try to keep everything wide?
I've went with Jonathan Lekaraki because he's a Patrick Laine type, scores goals in bunches. I'm not sure about his potential going forward if he doesn't become a top six player, similar to Savoy. I'm not sure he can be a bomb six guy if he doesn't pan out as a top six guy, but he's one of those guys when you're an opposing coach and you're saying who's a player if we take a penalty that we need to keep an eye on at all times, right? Similar to how Austin Matthews gets treated on the power play, Patrick Laine, Ovi. I think Lekaraki is gonna be there one day. He's just got such a nasty shot, and he's gonna haunt penalty kills for years to come. And I think with the creative guys that you mentioned on Anaheim, like Zegras, I think having a guy who can finish the way Lekaraki can, I think would be a great fit for Anaheim. So yeah, pretty straightforward for me.
Number 11, the most confusing spot in the draft because the team doesn't even have a GM. the San Jose Sharks. I have them picking Daniel Yurov, and I think there are some. I had him falling to here because of a couple of reasons. Obviously, there are questions about when he'll come to the league and everything, but I think he'll go here. And yeah, so you guys can take the mantle, and I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have Yurov at 11 as well. I really like his two-way game as a winger. I think if you took kind of like Dylan Larkin and like shoved him off to the wing, that's kind of like the player that you can get with Yurov. I think he's a very steady player. He has a really physical edge, and he has good vision and good playmaking, which I think is one of his better traits. But he does need to pick up that internal clock. I think at the KHL level, he's struggled because he's realizing that plays that he could make at lower levels and where he could hold on to the puck before making a pass, he can't really do that anymore. I think it's been a bit of a tough transition for him. But I think his work ethic, his ability to forecheck, his way to play all three zones, um, I think bodes well for him. Where at worst, I think he's gonna be a really good third liner. Like at worst, if everything goes wrong, I think he can be a third liner. He's got really good hockey IQ, which I really
Okay,
value
I'm back.
in the draft process. And I think at the very least he can be a 35, 40 point guy. But I actually had him higher at first. I had him at like as high as 6 or 7 on my big board, but his struggles in the KHL and his lack of ice time has dropped him a bit for me. But I think the fact at all that he's played so many games in the KHL, even if he hasn't been getting that much ice time, is a testament to his talent. So I have him going at number 11 as well. Also, I do like that Isaac call out. I'm also very high on him. He's number 14 on my big board. Um, I just think there's. I'll talk about him later when
Okay,
when it's my pick.
so
But
did you pick Yurov too?
I pick Yurav at 11. Yeah.
All right.
I
Did
have
Nick say his?
yeah,
Uh,
I have Yurov a lot lower, so I'll get to him there. But
Who was your 11?
my 11 is Pavel Minchikov. I've watched him play live in Saginaw, or not in Saginaw, but I've watched him play live at Saginaw, and he's just so good on the puck in the offensive zone. He'll get the puck, he'll move up, he'll make a nice play, he'll get back to the blue line, and then he'll get the puck and he'll skate up the ice and make a really good
Who
scoring
did you have
attempt.
10? I thought you had the same guy as me. It's 10. Who did
10,
you
I
have?
had Isaac Howard.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
Isaac.
Jesus. I'll turn around. Sorry, I had to go because uh, you know how I said that my dog had slammed my door open? My my mom had thought I'd finished recording, so she wanted to ask you a question. I was like, no, no, no. The only reason my door is open is because
Uh,
Ripley slammed it
uh,
open.
no worries
Um,
about that.
okay, so okay, I'm
Anyways,
caught up now. So you
cool.
had
I have
yeah.
Pavel Minchikov at 11. I
Yeah.
had Isaac Howard at 10. Minchikov, he's just so good in the offensive zone. I love the way he's so smooth with the puck in the offensive zone. He can create scoring chances. I mean, you mentioned it, 62 points in 67 games. That Saginaw team was not a very good team, and he was a play driver on that team. And I think when you surround him around better players, he's going to be like a 70, 80 point guy next year. I think when you add guys like Michael Misa, who's going to be on that team next year, who's
That's
a
gonna be a
name that
good
we're going to
player.
start
Okay,
hearing about. They're going to
so
be a
That's
good
actually
team,
a
I
good
think,
player.
in the next couple of years. And he's going to be
for
in
the
the
next
backbone of that team. And
the
that's
next
going to help with
I
his development as well.
I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
start speeding up. That way we
That's
don't.
fine.
That way
No,
it
it's
doesn't take
okay.
like
I'm just really big on
Worst
I
case,
Minchikov as
worst
well.
case scenario, we'll just cut it off into the lottery picks and then the rest of the
well
first round. It'll be two.
I mean we can I mean we'll finish the rest of this thing and we could do like more in depth like talking during the whole live stream
Sure.
because you know obviously we don't want this video to be like 8 hours long, uh, especially since it's gonna take for export and everything. But yeah, and so for number 12, I have Leon Bichelle. This is a player that I had kind of rising a bit because of his size. Uh, he's 6'5", 225, and he's definitely something that you know the Blue Jackets could use. Just a good defender. He's very good, you know, defensively, and he's 18 years old, but he's been playing with, you know, he played with the U20s when he was 16, and he was playing with the uh, no, he was playing with the U20s when he was 15. No, yeah, 16, and then 17 he was playing in the uh, Lexland J20s and in the SHL. So he's been he's been solid. So like I think it'll be a very good pick, but I have him going pretty high because he's just a lot taller, and for his size, he's good at puck handling. He's very good at reading plays, and he's just something that a team could use pretty well.
That's a pretty high for Liam Bichelle. I like him as a player too, but it's a bit high for me.
I
I have him
I
as a end of the first round,
I
start of the second round
I
range
said
player.
I said
I have
he was going to
I have
jump
him
up because of his
40th.
size.
I have him
Yeah,
40th.
I have him 32nd, I think, something like
Yeah,
that.
this is
I'm real low. I have
I
him
the
32nd.
reason
I
I
do
have him
like him
so
though.
high is because of his size, and I was trying to make it on what I think that each GM would pick, and this is what I think they're going to go with.
I've gone at 12 with Columbus, who I had taking Noah Ostlund at 6 earlier, with one of his line mates for the Jurgens, who was has not been drafted yet, in Liam Ogren. Um, if I had to describe his game simply, I think if you take Blake Coleman's game, you copy and paste it, and you slap it under a Swedish branding, I think that's what you get in Liam Ogren. I think he's very strong. He's very fast. He shields the puck very
Oh,
well. He's a
hmm.
power forward, even though he doesn't have power forward size. I think he can be an NHLer in the next 1 to 2 years. I think at his worst, right away when he makes it to the NHL, he's gonna be a third liner and he's gonna be on that kind of speed check line, which like checking line, which we've seen is very important in playoff runs, for teams if you want to go deep in the playoffs. Um, and he's shown that, especially him, Oslin, and like Hiramaki, those three had some great chemistry as an energy line for the Jurgens this last year. They're one of the best lines in hockey, I think, for junior level. And I think if you can reunite him with Osland, I think those two would be really good together because Ogren's forechecking is just so good, and I think you pair him with a guy like Osland, who's a playmaker. Now you just gotta put a finisher on that line, and you can re revisit that magic that line had for the Jurgens and the U20s this past season. I probably have him a bit higher than what other people have him. He's another guy I think who's really underappreciated, but I like Liam Ogren. His ceiling might not be quite there, but I think he's again one of the more safer picks, and I really value that. I value those kinds of guys in a draft.
See, this is what I like about this year's draft is that there are so many good players in this year's draft that a pick that you could see as like a late first rounder could also be seen as a mid to earlier first rounder, and that's just how
Yeah.
deep this draft is, and it's cool because like I have Isaac Howard a bit later and these guys a bit later, but I still think they're extremely good players. Nick, did you say you
Yeah.
were 12?
No, I haven't. I said on 12 I have Noah Ostlund. I'm a big fan of him. I think Siakam kind of said everything I needed to
You
say
shouldn't have
there.
said Osland
So,
later. You should have said like I have him going in the fifth round, just to
oh.
make him scream. But
um,
yeah,
yeah, I
okay.
have him 12 here.
So for number
Also really good. Yeah.
13, the New York Islanders, I have them selecting Marco Casper,
Oh, that's a good player.
and
I
I
like
like
Casper.
Marco Casper. He's a good center. He hasn't really had like the point getting yet, the point scoring yet that you may like, but again, the Islanders are really hurting for a centerman. I don't think Barzell is good enough to be that, and I think that they could grow Casper into being that. So yeah, I think that he'll go to the Islanders, and I think it's going to be a good pick for them as long as they're able to grow him correctly.
Yeah, I mean he's a good player. I have him at 21 on my big board, but again, right, this is what it is with his draft class. I really like Casper though. I think he's a more raw prospect. Um, I think he was the one who was teammates with Marco Rossi, right?
Right.
And they had that kind of tandem. And I want to say more raw. I think he's not as hyped because his game's more quiet. But I don't think he has the upside that some of the other players in this class have. I don't think he's as good in terms of at his best, but I still think it's not out of the question because there are a lot of tools to work with there. So I could totally see him going as high as the mid teens. Um, and to be fair, I've gone with a really off the board player at pick 13 here, and there's another one of my guys. I've went with another DeJurgens player,
Oh my god.
Callie Odelius, defenseman. He's my
Mm-hmm.
number 3 ranked defenseman. And I've talked to Nick about him a lot. Nick knows how much I love this player. Um, I think I think him and Jurasek are the two safest defenseman prospects in this entire draft. And most draft profiles I've seen have him going in the second round. Um, but I think he's a guy who can be like a Brett Pesce, Rasmus Sandin type. He's not great straight line speed wise, but he's an incredible four-way skater. And he's really steady with his zone. He's very good at transitional passing. He's not very good at like carrying the puck the way like a Kale McCarr can, but he's got very high hockey IQ. He's got very good gap control. Very really great breakout passes. And he's 6 feet, 185 pounds. He can still grow into that frame. He's still young enough. And the reason I'm so high on him is because I see a lot of Topi Niemela, who's someone I was really high on a couple years ago when it was his draft year. I had him as a high second round pick when Toronto took him in the third round. And I see shades of those. I think you give him a year of development, he's going to be a guy who next year we're going to be talking about like how did this guy not go in the first round. I really like him, and he's probably not going to get drafted this high. But I think he's a safe bet to at least be a second pair defenseman in the NHL. So yeah, that's my pick.
Yeah, definitely. All right, what about you,
Cool.
Nick?
My 13, I have Denton Matejchuk. I love his confidence when he has the puck, and I love his two-way game as well. He's got some very good puck skills. He's very quick. There's some question marks around him about his decision making, his overall consistency. But I still think he's one of the better defensemen in this draft, and that's why I still have him in the top half of this draft. He's kind of like all over the place. I've seen. I think you just can't go wrong with Matejchuk when it just comes to that overall skill level that he does have. He had almost a point a game as a defenseman in the WHL this year. He was really good as a 16-year-old as well. So he definitely has the confidence to score points at the next level, and I have 13 here.
I like it. Number 14, the Winnipeg Jets. Honestly, this one has. I don't think that. This has been in every mock draft for the entire year, and it's honestly just too good to not keep putting in mock drafts, and this should happen. Connor Geeky to Winnipeg. I just think it's fun.
Ready for the Winnipeg Ice.
Fair
Gets
enough.
drafted by Winnipeg.
Yeah,
I
I think
mean,
it's
fair
fun, and
play.
he'd also be a good fit for them. Winnipeg's gonna be looking for a center pretty desperately, and I think Geeky could do that for
I
them.
mean, yeah, Winnipeg does have a history of just going with really slow superstars. Blake Wheeler is an example of that. So I mean, Karagiki, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
he's again another one of those prospects that just up
yeah
and down on the board.
yeah, and just yeah, and I think it's just a good way to just keep things nice and fun, in a way. So who you got for number 14? Uh, Whoever wants to go next.
I guess I'll
I'll
go.
defer to Nick. Yeah, I'll defer to Nick.
Yeah, mine's a little off the board, I would say, just based on what I've looked at. But I've been a fan of this guy since day one, and that's Rutger McGroarty.
Rutger.
I just can't pass over the fact that you have like a 6'4", 6'3" centerman who can score goals like no tomorrow. He seems like such a perfect centerman to have down the middle. Maybe not a first line, give me a line player, but as a second line center, he'll be super, super good. A third line center, even he'll be unbelievably good as a third line center.
Yeah, and
Middle of the round is, I feel like it's just the perfect spot to have this player. All he does is score goals.
and
He's an underrated playmaker as well for
If we're
a
drafting
type of
off
player
of
he
how
is.
good someone's name is, he'd be going number one.
He's got a great
He's
name.
got a
He's got a
great
Yeah,
great.
Rutger
name.
Oh
McGroarty. Let's
man.
go. All right. So who do you
Great
got
name.
for 15 or
I
whatever
got
number
I
we're on?
got Philip Massar, another kind of off the
Ooh.
board pick, I think, but I really like his play. He's a three zone player. His shot is really underrated. He's one of the more polished play drivers in this class in my mind. He's got really smooth skating. He's got good vision. His shot, as I mentioned, is underrated. He can get them off at these different angles. Um, and his upside, like Ogren, is probably not first line material. Um, but I think he's a real good shot to be a really good second line center. And he's not as hyped as like a guy like Slavkovsky and Nemec, who are his countrymen. But I think he's definitely a top 20 pick. He's got really good short area passing, really good transitional playmaking. And I think regardless of whether he's a center or a winger, I think a player that he plays like is like a Jesper Bratt if you consider him as a winger, or like a Bo Horvat, where they're like, their game needs his game does need a little bit of rounding out. He's been guilty of puck ragging, holding on to the puck too long. But I think as he learns to involve his teammates more and use that vision and playmaking ability more often, he can be really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like him here
Yeah.
for Winnipeg. I think they need a guy like him.
Yeah, definitely. I really like him as a player. And uh, for number 16,
15,
the
15,
15.
Vancouver.
15.
Don't skip
Jesus,
Vancouver.
sorry. I just like to do what everyone else does and skip Vancouver. Um, for 15, Vancouver Canucks, I have Ryan Chesley.
Esley, that's a good
Chesley.
player.
Jesus, I keep fucking up names. Yeah, I just really like him. I think Vancouver could use him. Definitely. I think he'll be a good benefit to Vancouver. And not much else to say. I just really like him, and I think he fits perfectly at the spot. Uh, he's definitely a pretty good player.
All right. Number 15 is a guy that was in my top 3 a couple of years ago. That's Brad Lambert. I'm still a huge believer in Brad Lambert. I think it's just kind of been a bad spell for him. That this year he's on his third team and still not getting a ton of ice time. There's got to be a reason why he's not getting a ton of ice time, but he's so dynamic. He's so smart with the puck. He's not a slouch defensively either. He's an amazing skater. I just see him being one of the biggest draft steals just because of how his year's gone and how low his draft stock has kind of been. I think 15 is an absolute steal for Lambert. I think anywhere lower is just you're laughing. You may as well just laugh at the fact that Lambert's available at those spots. He's just because he's that good. He's that talented.
Yeah. The only question I have with him is why hasn't he been getting the ice time, and if it's
Fair
going to be a
enough. And I've been asking
situation,
that too.
yeah, if it's going to be a
I've been asking that
situation where
too,
he
but
can't play because of his whatever it's happening.
I think he could play for Saskatoon in the Western Hockey League. He's from there. I think you were at that interview as well with Wheeler. I was thinking the same thing as well. And he'll dominate. If he goes to WHO, he's going to dominate. There's no question.
Yeah.
He'll get the he'll
Yeah,
score. He'll develop.
he was so good at the World
He was.
Juniors last year. He was one of Finland's best players, and
Mm-hmm.
like I'm also really high on him. I have him going a little bit lower than where you have him right now, but I think that 15 to 18 range is where he's gonna go, and I think you have to take him if you're a team in that range.
Yeah,
You gotta take him
that's
because
a perfect
his
spot.
upside is just off the charts.
Yeah.
It's the perfect
I
balance.
remember Jacob Chikrin 2016 when it was his draft year. He was supposed to be the top 5, top 3 pick, and he fell to what was it, like 16th? And look at him now; he's like one of the top young defensemen in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think the same can be said for Lambert here. I think he could be one of the best young forwards in the league in 4 years' time. He's that good. He's that talented.
Definitely, we're gonna move swiftly
For
forward.
me though, I feel like at 15 for Vancouver, they've got a lot of tantalizing offensive prospects, but that blue line is looking tragically
That's
bare.
why I had what I had.
They have Quinn Hughes and then nobody.
Quinn Hughes isn't even good defensively.
Unless you can't Jet Woo as a prospect still, but
It's true.
like that prospect pool on that blue line is, and I have a different guy than Ryan Chesley, although I do like him as well. He's one of my guys. I've gone with Ty Nelson because
Ooh.
I see a lot of Torrey Krug in him. I think he's a top four defenseman. I think he's a really good playmaker. I think because of his size, he's gonna get overlooked, which is partly why I think Torrey Krug got overlooked for a lot of his draft year. But he's great at putting the puck on the net. He's in the half ice, which is why I consider like the first third of the offensive zone. He can quarterback an offense, right? Whether it's the power play or whether it's 5-on-5, when he's in the opponent's end of the ice, he's very good at kind of dictating pace. The issue is he needs to be a better transition passer. He has the vision, but the touch on the pass is just not there. He's often shooting a pass is just too strong. We talk about like good passes that are easy for the offensive players to get, right? If you rifle it off their stick, it's not ideal. He needs to work on his gap management. And he so he's definitely not a set in stone prospect, but despite his size, he's very good in front of his own net. He's also very aggressive and willing to pinch on the offensive end. I think his flaws, are fixable. I think his transition passing can be fixed, and I think his gap control will improve. He showed throughout the year that it was able to improve,
Yeah.
and I think if you put him on a pair with a more defensive minded D man, he can be really good and a
Right.
top four defenseman. So Ty
I
Nelson, I have
I agree
16.
100%. I'm gonna have to start
Yeah,
hurrying everybody along. Okay, so
that's fine.
we'll start doing sort of like quick fire. Okay, so number 16, Buffalo Sabres from the Vegas Golden Knights. I have Brad Lambert. The only reason he dropped this far was because I do have concerns on why he hasn't been playing and if what issues have been going on is going to be apparent when he's drafted and when he eventually is in the NHL or AHL. That's the reason why I have him dropping so far. But at this range, he's definitely a player that, has the upside to be picked around here.
All right. Number 16 is a
Yeah.
guy that I didn't really watch for the longest time, and he's all over the place when I look at rankings. The lowest I saw him was like 66. The highest I saw him was like 8th overall. It's Gleb Chikozov. I watched him play. He's really good at stripping pucks away. He's really good at carrying possession of the puck. He's really good at his puck control and guarding the net and
Nick,
not
it's a
guarding the
lightning
net,
round.
guarding the
Hurry.
puck. Okay, well, Jesus Christ, give me a second.
Look,
Holy,
look, look.
I
These
gotta
are these
think.
are top. These are top 50. These are top 20 picks. There are a lot of really good players here,
I
Rossi.
I
Yeah.
know, but the problem
Hey,
is that
worst case scenario,
we're
Rossi
gonna
will
get
split it
screamed
into
at
two.
every 5 seconds.
That's fine. That's fine.
No,
He's
it's
a really good
okay.
skater. He's a really good shooter. I think he does a lot of things right. I think he's one of the more complete players in this draft, and I think he'll go somewhere around this range. I'm not like top 10 high on him, but I am first round favorite for him, and
Yeah.
he can go anywhere in this draft. Seriously, he's just I don't know.
I 100% agree. All right, Ryan, lightning round, go.
14 for me is Isaac Howard because I
16.
think
We're at 16.
no, the 16 I meant. He's 14 on my big board, but I have him getting picked at 16. Isaac Howard, I think Buffalo this draft needs to go after high upside guys, which is why I had them going with Savoy and why I have them right now going Isaac Howard because I see Brad Marchand written all over him. If he not the the blue edge collar kind of play, but he does bring that at times. But I think he can be a really dynamic offensive player. The only reason, Nick, that I didn't have him going in the top 10 the same way that you have is because again he's playing in the US NTDP and he has committed to the University of Minnesota Duluth, but a lot of draft scouts and people have said that he probably needs one more year in the USNDTP. And I think it wouldn't do him harm to spend one more year there instead of going straight to college. And so I don't think he's quite ready yet. I haven't seen him perform the same way I've seen some other guys against, higher competition or against men. So that's the only concern I have. But in terms of skill set and talent, yeah, I think he can be a penalty killer too. Like I really see Brad Marchand in him. Undersized, feisty, great shot, finds open areas of the ice, can play on the penalty kill as a star player. Isaac Howard, really like him. He's my 16th
100%.
pick.
100%. They're, you know, obviously everybody knows I hate having to fucking hurry everything along, but I kind of have to for the editor's sake and my computer's sake because if it has a huge file it's gonna be uploading for like 3 years and I hate doing this, but keep doing the lightning round. Number 17, the Nashville Predators. This was a player I decided to pick here because I just really like this player. Frank Nazar and this guy are definitely my favorites of the draft. Matthias Havelid, I just love his play. He's a very good defenseman. I just love everything about him, and I want to see him on Nashville. I know he's not as big as one might want from a defenseman, but I don't care. I just love this guy. So I have him at 17 going to Nashville.
Talk to somebody that I think Siakam probably knows. I'm not going to name drop him,
Yeah,
but he's a really big fan of him. I just haven't watched him very much.
yeah, me
I
neither.
told him I was more of a fan of Hugo, and he kind of called me crazy a little bit. But 17, I've got Liam Ogren. Pretty much for the same reasons that I think it was Siakam that had him at like 12, right? He called
Yeah,
him,
I
yeah, because
had
he
him at
called him,
12. Yeah.
yeah. So pretty much for the same reason, he is a very strong player. And that line on that team is just
Oh
hilarious.
my
And
God, that was a
Ostlund and
crazy line.
Lekaramaki, like what are the like? That's a hilarious line to watch, and even like watching the U18s and watching the World Juniors as well. Like that's a hilarious line. But yeah, Ogren at 17, and I think it'd actually be a pretty good fit in Nashville. Um,
He
you
does
kind of need a
fit
stronger player like
their
that.
kind of players, right?
Yeah,
Like that more
I think that
blue
could be a
nosed.
yeah. I think that could be a very good pick for Nashville.
Okay.
I really like that actually. The more I think about it, the more I like his fit on Nashville. I think he's a player,
Mm-hmm.
Rossi, you would love to play on your team. I've gone with another player I think you would love on your team, but he plays a different position. He's a defenseman. I think you had him going 15 to Vancouver. I've got you guys taking Ryan Chesley. He's a defensive defenseman, real physical, uber physical, big. I think he's pretty tall. I think he's like 6'2",
Yeah,
something
he's a
like
big guy.
that. He's 6'2", like 200 something pounds. He's a big guy. He's got really good play strength, and he's someone that I compare to like a TJ Brody or a Nicholas Hjalmarsson. That's just so responsible in his own end. And when he was younger, he was much better offensively. But for some reason, this past season, the offensive production just hasn't been there. But I think just banking off of his performance as a guy who, I talked about players like earlier, like Ty Nelson, right? If you had a pair of Ty Nelson and Ryan Chesley, that'd be like a perfect defense pair, right? Because I think Ryan Chesley is a guy who can easily cover for a defenseman who's more offensively minded and needs someone to kind of be a more stay at home, kind of protect the home blue line. He's just really solid. I think he's another really safe player. I think he's someone who talent wise is probably a second pair defenseman, but like a Brody and a Hjalmarsson, if you play him with a guy like a Morgan Riley or, God forbid, a Tyson Berry, he's a guy who can play first pair minutes
He
because
could
he's just so sound
he
defensively.
would probably work well with somebody like Ference or someone like uh, Carrier.
Yeah, just like a more offensive forward rushing guy.
Yeah,
And he's no slouch passing either.
a big problem being Nashville and being a defender who gets picked is Nashville is it's going to be very hard to break into the top six, let alone the top four. Uh, but yeah,
I think that's how good I think he
I
is.
think I'm not discrediting that. I think he's extremely good. I think this is definitely a draft where it's going to be a lot harder I think it's going to be a lot harder to get a player that's going to not be that good. I think this draft is good, so solid that no matter who you pick, it's probably going to turn out pretty good.
Yeah.
Now watch me eat my words, and almost half of the players here bust. But number 18 Dallas Stars, I got Rutger McGroarty, and I don't really have anything to add on what Nick said earlier, so I'm just gonna defer to whoever wants to go next to kind of keep the flow and everything moving.
I think Nick's muted right now, so
Yeah, we're just
I'll just go ahead with mine.
um
I've gone with Brad Lambert here at 18. I think this is the bottom of where he goes. I was taking players and I was saying, should I keep dropping him? I was like, I can't drop him. If he makes it past Dallas at 18, I will genuinely be shocked because clearly there must be an issue that we don't know about, right?
yeah.
Like Nick mentioned, if I had to compare him to like another sport, I call him the Kyrie Irving of this draft class. His one-on-one ability with the puck, I think, is bar none. I think he's the best in this class. I think if you looked at a player comparable that I've been doing for a lot of these top 20 picks, I would say he's like a Matthew Barzal or an Alexei Kovalev. Just a really good player, really fast player, really shifty player. I think Lambert, obviously, consistency, right? And play time. We haven't seen him play
Yeah.
consistently. And I did hear from someone who watches Finland a lot that's in our server mention that there's something to do with his dad who just keeps on making him switch teams. And maybe that's part of the issue. Maybe he needs to get away, kind of like Lonzo Ball in basketball. But, I think his ceiling is just so high. I think, looking back, if he goes in this 15 to 18 range, you can look back at this draft class and go,
Yeah.
man, like we really just let no, and let's just not forget. Okay, I want to make like this really clear. Brad Lambert, at the age of 17 and 18, has played almost over 100 games in the KHL. That in itself is impressive. His ice time is not always there, but like a guy like Danila Yurov, who me and Rossi both had in the top 15, this is his first season in the KHL. Lambert's played there for 2 seasons now, over almost 100 games. So I think he's a really good player. I think
Again,
18 is as low as he could go.
it's just scary with his playtime, and that's why he could. That's why he keeps. That's why I think we have him so low is because of the playtime issues, and you don't know what you're getting into. But
Yeah.
obviously, we'll hope that everything gets sorted. You don't want this type of stuff to hurt a player, unless what he did was bad, like really bad. Then
Yeah.
maybe I'll retract everything I just said.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
Takes
we'll
back
see it
now.
keep going.
So
Yeah, sorry
Um,
guys, I had to mute myself a little bit there.
yeah,
Where are
don't
we
worry.
at?
so
We're
18.
still just
We're at
trying to
18.
we're
Yeah.
still just trying to lightning round it. So what do
Okay,
you
yeah,
got?
I'll go quick.
Go
18,
fast.
I got Philip. I got Philip Massar, 18. I love his skill in transition game. He's very rapid, and he's played against men as well. I think he's a very underrated prospect in this draft, and I think that kind of gives him a jump start um, on his development there. I still think he's a little bit raw, and I think he's still got some rounding out to do. But overall, I like what's there in front of us. Um, like I said, very
Yeah.
skilled, very quick,
All right.
drives the net hard, very good player.
Okay. So next prospect, number
19 with the
19.
Kings.
No, it's the Wild.
Oh, it's the Wild, right? They traded this pick.
Y-
Kevin Fiala.
Yeah. So I have
Ooh.
Jimmy Snuggerud.
Oh, another elite name.
Yeah. He's a good player. He's going to Minnesota, to the University of Minnesota. So you know what? You just traded for somebody who goes to the University of Minnesota. Why not use the pick that you traded for in the same trade to draft someone that's going to the University of Minnesota? So I think he'll go here. Obviously, he's a good winger, which is exactly what the Wild need, considering they just lost an extremely good winger. Um, so I think that this is a good match. So that's who I have going here, just to keep it going fast. Next, go.
I'll go number 19. I have Ty Nelson, who's just been going further higher up on my list as the year's gone on. He's got a hard shot. He can really quarterback a power play. Very good offensive defenseman. He also plays a lot bigger than what he looks like. He says he's like 5'11", but he's probably like 190 pounds. He's very big, and he plays that way too. He's very underrated two-way defenseman. I think more people see him more as an offensive defenseman, but I don't think he's a slouch in the defensive end either. I think he's really good with the stick. I think he's got very good positioning in his own end. I think he's a very safe pick here, and I think in a spot like Minnesota, that could be a good spot for him to go.
Agreed,
Yeah.
100%. Right.
I had this pick in mind with LA, so it might not be a great fit here, but I got Marco Casper at 19, which is probably again, a bit higher than some people might have him.
Well, they have
I just
Rossi,
think
didn't they?
Yeah,
They still have Rossi, so I mean,
they have Marco
maybe.
Rossi. I mean,
that's that
I
that
had him going a lot
that could
sooner.
work actually.
I had him going a lot
And,
sooner, if you guys remember. But yeah,
oh yeah, I'm going a lot earlier. Yeah, but
yeah,
I really like him. I think he's a really good player, and I mean now even more perfect, right? You
yeah,
reunite him
100%.
with his countryman, with Marco Rossi. So two
Uh,
Marcos.
yeah,
I just think he's a good player.
yeah. Okay, so next player.
Not nothing special, I would say, but he's just all around. I think he's
All
pretty
right,
good.
so number 20, Washington Capitals. I have Owen Beck.
Ooh.
Oh,
I like him.
interesting.
I like him. I think he'll work good with the Capitals, and yeah, I just like him. It's kind of hard to explain the methods to my madness. sometimes.
I mean, he's a good player.
Yeah.
I again, we were talking earlier about those guys in the top 45 that could all be first rounders.
Yeah.
Owen Beck, I think, is one of those guys. I think I had him 34th. So,
All right.
lower than you, but still a good player.
All right. Who's your player? Go
Um,
fast.
I put Connor Geeky here at 20. And this is a player that's been very, I guess, controversial. I don't. He's My comparables with him are Jamie Benn and Nick Ritchie. Okay, and like when I say Jamie Benn, I mean like prime Jamie Benn because I think he has that kind of skill set. But at the same time, we've seen a lot of players drafted really early on, like Jake Virtanen, Michael Rasmussen, Nick Ritchie, Lawson Krause, who were drafted because they're big and they're skilled, right? But my big issue with Geeky is he he doesn't he doesn't skate like very
Mm-hmm.
well. Like we talk about how Slavkovsky has this like really good skating for his size. I think Connor Geeky's skating is honestly I don't know if it's NHL level. That's my really big concern with him. I think if he can't and after watching Nick Ritchie for like a couple of games with the Leafs this season, I can't in good conscience take him with a top 15 pick because of that risk. I'm a little bit scared on, if how much his skating, because that's why his older brother, Morgan Geeky, hasn't really found a home in the NHL. Morgan was also not a very good skater, and that's part of why he hasn't been able to crack an NHL lineup. And I think Connor, but at the same time, he's really skilled. He's really big. His skill is tremendous for a guy his size. Um, and I just worry with teams with faster players if you'll be able to keep up with them the same way Nick Ritchie had those issues. But with Washington, I think it's a good fit because Washington doesn't also has an older roster, not a lot of fast guys. I think in the next 2 years he could fit on a team and he could play at their pace. So I think he'd be a good fit for Washington.
Yeah. Nick, who do you have going here?
Number 20, I have Kevin Korchinski. Very good offensively, but defensively, I think he's very immature. He has a lot of rounding out to do in that area, but he's a very big defenseman, so he can easily go way higher. I think Bob McKenzie had him like 11th on his board, so he
Yeah.
can probably go in that range there. But I just have a little bit of question marks when it comes to the defensive side of the game. He reminds me a lot of Jake Gardiner in that type of sense, like a taller, more lankier Jake Gardiner, which kind of scares me a little bit if you like look at his past with the Leafs and all that. We won't mention that, but I think he's still a decent defenseman. Like he'll definitely put up some numbers. I just don't love his defensive game at all at the moment. There's still time to round that out. Like I said, I just think he'll just need some development in that area, and it's going to hold him back for a couple of extra years, I think. But I still think he's a first round talent.
Right. 21st Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll try to go faster. Seamus Casey.
James Casey.
So I think this is going to be a player that's going to be pretty that Pittsburgh could need when they he'll be I think he'll be good. So that's just where I have him going. Yeah, so let's just keep going. Try to do it faster. That way, whoever edits this and
All right, Rossi, we get it.
I know
Well,
I'm just trying to
I'll
make
jump
it.
in real quick. So Nick, how I mentioned earlier at the start was funny when you said you didn't have Nathan Gaucher in the first round.
Yes.
I find it funny because at 21 here for Pittsburgh, I have you guys taking Nathan Gaucher. Pittsburgh does have a history, especially in the JR years, of taking players from the QMJHL in the first two rounds of the draft. And I think Gaucher is a good fit for what you guys want. He's kind of a similar in a way to your second round pick last year in Tristan Bras, where he's a really big player. I think he can develop into a really nice power forward. I think he plays center. All these prospects are starting to blend in a little bit, but I really like him as a player. Really talented. I think he had pretty good production too. And with Pittsburgh's history of drafting from the Q and his skill set, and your need for a prospect at center, to be honest, right? Like Gino and Crosby are getting up there in age. I think you need a future centerman. I think he would be a good fit for you guys.
All right, Nick, who do you have?
Yeah, I had to remember if Pittsburgh actually had a first round pick this year because they traded so often. But 21 is a player that I am very high on, a lot more than most people are. It's David Goyette. I feel the same about Goyette that I did about Connor McMichael. He's a very smart player. He's not like a fantastic skater by any means, but his finishing is so good. He's good. He's exactly where he needs to be in the offensive zone. He can pick up, just garbage goals, but he can also create really good scoring chances on his own. Defensively, he's no slouch either. I think he's a really good two-way player, but I think his finishing is really what's going to set him apart, and I think what's going to carry him forward into a potential NHL roster in the future. I'm really high on Goyette, and I think if Pittsburgh takes him, I would love that pick for us because you mentioned it yourself. We need centers. In that prospect, I mean, we could probably use a defenseman as well. I mean, the defensemen I still have left are guys like Luno and Casey and Odelius, who I would love to have on the Penguins as well. But Goyette, I'm very high on as well, so I would have no problem if Penguins took him at 21.
Yeah, so number 22, the Anaheim Ducks, that comes from the Boston Bruins. I have Jonathan Lekermacki, and
Ooh, you have him low.
he's a pure goal scorer, as everybody said. With the Ducks' talent, he could become amazing. And yeah, I had him kind of dropping a little bit because of the questions I do have about him, but I think this is the perfect time to take him, especially for the Ducks. And yeah, that's all I got to say because I'm trying to speed it up. But yeah.
I got Rucker McGurty here at 22, which is lower than both of you, but it's not so much of me being low on his talent as I just like some of these other guys ahead of him. I think from between Casper, Gaucher, and McGurty, I don't think there's a huge difference between those three for me personally. And Casper even. So those guys are just in that same range, and so I could see him going anywhere from the late teens to the early 20s, but I think he's time another centerman, another really good forward for them to develop. And they've also had a history of American players, right? Drafting American players. So I think he's a good fit here.
22, I have Cutter Gauthier, which is a little bit lower than what I have. I think it was Rossi that had him like a fifth or something like that. Something crazy. Fourth, fifth.
Cutter Gauthier, I had him going to. I had him number 8. No, I had him 6.
Number 6, right. The thing with Cutter Gauthier is that he's a big body and he can play physical and he's kind of projects more of a power winger. I just find him really one-dimensional. You know, I think he's a great shooter, but I just don't really see him doing much else. He could be good on the power play potentially, you know, but when it comes to playmaking, when it comes to, you know, just kind of the rest, it's just kind of like okay for me. That's kind of why I have him a lot lower than a lot of players. He's not a bad player, and I think Anaheim, and I have them taking Eisenhower at number 10, which is hilarious. I think that'd be great first round for them, to be honest. I just don't see Gauthier making as much of an impact as some of the players I have ahead of him, and I don't see him really being a first line, maybe second. I see him more as like a middle six guy, like a decent middle six guy that can play power play minutes. I'm just not as high on him. But he's still a good player.
Pick number 23. I have Nathan Gaucher. I hate everything. I have Nathan Gaucher. I think the Blues will pick him. I can't really. He's just, you know, kind of
a good player.
Yeah, he's a player that'll fit the Blues system, I believe, and I think that the Blues will definitely need a replacement for O'Reilly, and I think Gaucher could definitely fill that maybe. So yeah, that's who I have going 23.
I'll let Nick go first because my 23, I promise, is one of my last longer ones. But this is I do need a little bit of time with this one.
Yeah, we're gonna just have to go fast because PCs are gonna die.
23 is Tristan Luna, which is a lot lower than what I had him at the start of the year. I think he's a very high floor, low ceiling type player. I think he's a player that's very technically sound. He's pretty calm and composed. I feel like there was with him a little bit more left to be desired with him. I think he's got some good leadership as well. And he's kind of mature for his age. I just feel like I said, there's just kind of more that I wish he kind of scored more. I thought he was going to be like a 50, 60 point guy, like we're seeing from guys like Matejchuk and the like, even Minchikov as well. So I was left a little disappointed. But with that being said, I still think he's a first round talent. I still think he's one of the safe bets as a defenseman. I just don't think his ceiling is as high as guys I have ahead of him. I still like the guy a lot.
Yeah, I have Luna on the first round too. I have finally Mintyukov here at 23 for St. Louis, which is miles lower than both of you. And I'm not gonna lie. I know you guys aren't gonna like this. I see shades of Rasmus Ristolainen in this guy. He's kind of erratic defensively, I'm not a huge fan of his defense. I'm not a huge fan of his gap control. He's very aggressive off the rush defensively. When you have wingers coming down the boards, he always wants to cut them off, lay the big hit, lay the body, and that's great, right? That's why I have him as a PK Subban type potentially, but more agility, more ability to activate because I really do love his offensive activation, how he'll surge down a four-way skater, but mental IQ wise, he just sometimes defensively, his decisions he makes, especially on the rush, it leaves his team in pretty tough situations defensively. And I just don't see him. I see him as a guy that, he has to be great offensively in the NHL because I think his defensive IQ, his IQ in his own end is not good enough. It just isn't good enough. I think his teammates are gonna have to cover for him a lot. Um, and yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of his defensive game, especially off the rush. I think he's over aggressive. I think he tries to play the body too much. And I think he's a second pair defenseman who needs a really good defensive partner to keep him in check.
I can understand that. Yeah. So for these last, what is it? The last few. I think we're at
We
24 now.
got Yeah, we're at
Yeah, it's
24.
24.
Yeah. With these last few, we'll just say the players and then go to the next one because we don't want it to be too long. I'm sorry, it's just gonna be.
Right.
All right. So 24, I have Denton Medichuk. What about you guys?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, I have Seamus Casey 24, who I'm still a really big fan of.
Yeah. I have Cutter Gauthier at 24. Same reasons as Nick.
All right.
I have one dimensional.
25, Toronto Maple Leafs. I have Owen Pickering.
Don't love that as a Leafs fan, personally.
Yeah, I don't know about
Am I allowed to talk a little bit for my own team? Just to this last
Yeah,
one.
you can
It
talk
is
for a
my
little
team.
bit because
I have at 25 Daniel Yurov, who if he
Oh,
falls to
I
Toronto,
love you, Nick.
if he falls to Toronto, that's a pretty decent pick.
Oh, I love that. Are you kidding me? I love your
I think both players that Nick and I said, if they drop to Toronto, that'd be such a huge steal.
I personally am not as high on Owen Pickering, but again, he's one of
Never
those
mind.
guys that is in my top 40-ish range. I think I had him. Oh, actually, no, I'm a lot lower. I mean, he's at 46, so I'm not that low on him. But
Okay.
the guy that I have here for the Leafs is, funny enough, Kevin Korchinski. Now, before you get on me, I know defensively, Jake Gardner, Tyson Berry. You would think I'd had
Yeah.
enough of these kinds of defensemen. Okay, fair, understandable. But I think he's got a 6'3" frame. He's kind of lengthy, kind of wiry. I think he can grow into that body. I think he can be a lot more physical than what he's shown. And I think his offensive production and upside, like he reminds me kind of like Mintyukov, who so many people have in the top 15. Like offensively, he's not as dynamic as Mintyukov, but his production has been the same, right? I think as a rookie, he's set the defenseman record for assists in the season, right? He was crazy this year offensively. Defensively, a lot to be desired, but to be fair, I don't think Mintyukov's defense is that great either. So I think he's a guy that can grow. I think he's got size he can grow into, strength he can grow into, and I think he can be taught to be better defensively.
All right.
And so I really like him here.
Yeah. Okay. 26. Montreal Canadiens from the Calgary Flames. I have Tristan Lunau. Nick, go.
Ivan Miroshnichenko, which if they get Shane Wright and Miro in the same draft, it's hilarious.
Yeah. Ryan, go.
I've got Denton Mediuchuk.
All right.
Still like him.
27th overall, Arizona Coyotes from the Carolina Hurricanes via the Montreal Canadiens. I have Noah Osland. Why did that take me so long?
Oh, you're low on him.
Yeah, why did that take me so long to read? I don't understand. All right, Nick, go.
The guy I have at 27 is also lower than a lot of people have him. It's Connor Geeky, which I feel like is actually a very Arizona pick. Big guy, still very raw.
Ryan, go.
Yeah, you and me both have him in the 20s. I've gone one pick after Nick, Ivan Miroshnichenko here. I think Montreal or Arizona are definitely going to take him. They have multiple picks, or Buffalo. 26, 27, 20 is where he's going to go because they have multiple picks. They can afford to take the risk. that some other teams can't. So yeah.
28, Buffalo Sabres from the Florida Panthers. One of my favorite names in the draft, Jagger Furcus.
Oh, he's really good. Yeah, I
He is
like him
good.
too. I was really considering playing him first round as well.
All right, Nick,
He's a
go.
great player.
I have a player that's a lot higher on my list than he is on a lot of other lists. It's Jordan Dumais from the Halifax News Head.
Dumais is good as well.
You're
I'm
right.
not.
Yeah.
I just haven't watched them honestly. I have Shamus Casey here at 28. I like him. Another
20,
one of those pure offensive defensemen.
29, Edmonton, Isaac Howard.
I've got Callie Odelius, 29th.
Hey, first rounder. Let's go, Nick. Let's go. I have Tristan Loon out here at 29 with the Oilers. I think he's exactly what the Oilers need on that right side. Just a steady presence to counteract Tyson Berry.
30, from the New York, 30 Winnipeg Jets from the New York Rangers. I have Julian Lutz.
Ooh.
I haven't watched enough of him, to be fair.
No, neither have I, but I know he plays in DEL, which is pretty cool. Men's league.
Yeah. haven't
30,
watched him.
I have Jaeger Furcus.
Yes.
I really should have put him in the first round. I have Elias Salamonson. I still think he's a first rounder. But just barely.
I have him just outside.
31, another great name, Luca Del Belluz.
He's another
Going to
fringe
Tampa.
first rounder for me. Yeah, I like him too.
31,
I've gone with Leon Bischel.
Ooh.
Size.
Jeez.
Tampa
31
with
I have
Bischel.
31 I have Yuri Kulich.
All right.
I haven't watched him enough
32
either. I know you talked about him though.
32, Arizona from the Colorado Avalanche. I have Liam Ogren.
Yeah, you really hate my Desjardins boys, don't you? Damn, you got Austin in the bottom 25. You got my boy Ogren in the bottom. Man, I got Gleb Trikozov because I agree he's a first rounder. I think he's definitely gonna go in the first round, which is counterproductive because I have him at 32. But I really like him as well.
And my 32 is Luca Del Belbaloo.
Yeah. All right. That's the end of this episode. It went on pretty long. Not too sure what the next episode will be. We'll see you guys next time. We'll be streaming the draft. So see that, and we'll see you next time.